Hi guys, welcome to Investing with GYK, and today we'll talk about the Chinese tax cut. So very different. The Chinese tax system is very different from US. From an investor's perspective, there are essentially three kinds of essentially taxes that a company has to bear. Um, the common one is like it's basically the same as the U.S. one, which is the income tax, the corporate income tax. I think the income tax rate is like 25%, and there is no state tax on top of that. And then the second one is value added tax, so VAT, and from 1st of April, so 7 days ago, a week ago, there is a change in VAT, and I'm currently on the Chinese. It's called the State Taxation Administration, and they have very kindly provided infographics. I think that's one thing that the Chinese government is doing pretty well. They have stuff like this that are designed to be consumed by average Joes. So the important thing is here. So anything that used to be taxed at 16% is now taxed at 13%, and then it's mainly for manufacturing, right? So the nice thing is that, let's just go through this and then we'll go back to this. So then there are some other stuff like transportation and all that stuff used to be charged at 10%, now it's 9%. So what's affected is transportation, postage, construction, real estate, telco, and agricultural products. And everything else doesn't change, right? So there's also some other changes. And then it will give a tax cut of about 10,100 million. I don't know. Let me just try to make this. That is 1 trillion. Yeah, okay. So that 1 trillion yuan tax cut. Okay, so let's go to this construction thing. So this is the way VAT works is that you have your cost and you have your absolute cost, so your material cost, right? So that does not let me think how this works. I know the spirit, but I haven't actually seen the actual thing. But essentially, if you're Gree, for example, let's just take that as an example. Your cost is, in terms of VAT, is going to be like the materials, right? All the materials, and I'm not even sure if their machinery would be VAT deductible, but the least that will be deducted is the materials, the raw materials that they buy, or if they had to have to buy like parts from other companies, that would be deducted, and then you take the revenue, subtract that cost, and keep in mind your labor cost is not included in here. And your sales cost is not included in here. There's a lot of things that's not included in here. So once you take that away, that difference imagine if that difference used to be $30 out of 100, you would get charged 16% out of that 30%. So you would be charged about 4.8% in terms of total revenue as VAT, and that's transparent. So the consumer doesn't see it. The consumer sees the tax included price. And now it's 13%, so you get a 3% back if your margin, which is a very rough, it's not exactly gross margin, but similar to gross margin. If your margin is 30%, then this 3% decline would give you 1%, about 1% in actual margin. So you pay 1% less tax in terms of VAT if you keep your price the same, which I think is likely to happen for Gree, because they generally don't lower their price as much. Actually, they did lower their price just last year for a limited amount of time. Anyways, imagine if they don't, they will get 1% more profit out of the same sales. So that's 1% boost to, that's 1% of the revenue that's added to your profit. The net profit margin for Gree was something like 20% or 15%. So you add 1% to that in terms of the percentage of the increase, in terms of percentage increase on profit, that will be like 7% increase. So that's actually like a 7% increase on your net profit. Actually, I'm missing something. What you still have to pay the associated corporate income tax at 25%. So instead of 1%, you will get 0.75%. So instead of something like 7%, you get like 5% boost. So we get a 5% boost in profitability just from this tax cut, and that is assuming their material cost, their input cost, does not go down because of the tax cut, right? For a company that has a it has very strong buyer power and then weak, like they are a very strong buyer. They're a buyer that can dictate certain things. They probably will ask their suppliers to cut their price because because their tax burden just went down. And on the other side, they probably wouldn't pass that savings to the consumers simply because they have a brand recognition and that. And I haven't heard of any price cuts yet. I'll obviously keep an eye on that, but that hasn't happened. And yeah, so for all the manufacturers, you are likely to see a boost in profitability. The thinner their current net margin, the higher the relative change. So Gree is actually pretty high margin, so that change is not as big. For things that are teetering on the edge of profitability, you would see a pretty big change in terms of profitability. And the other couple of things, so some companies, I'm not sure which one applies to it. There's a bunch of crazy things going on in China. So if you are one of these high-tech companies, that high-tech being defined by the government with certain rules, then you actually pay lower taxes. I'd forgotten whether it was lower VAT or lower corporate tax, corporate income tax. So, but anyways, so this is something that just happened, and I don't see anyone talking about it online. I think that's important if you want to invest in China. Yeah, I think that's that. So see you next time.